to just thank Nagla. She's a driving force for many of the activities on breast in Egypt as a whole. So we thank her very much for her activity.
Thank you, Dr. I appreciate it.
Thank you. If there's any question, okay. If not,
Which do we rely on? First of all, I would like to thank you for it's very professional work. I like the lecture very much. Which do we rely on most? The size or the intensity of contrast uptake, or the kinematics or the diffusion? Okay. And which do you expect to appear first?
As regards the size during the follow-up sessions, the size is the most important indicator of response, but not of complete pathological response, meaning that after the first session of chemotherapy, when the size starts to decrease, specifically more than 40%, so this patient will be a good responder. But it is not necessarily to disappear completely, but it's a very good indicator of good response. But as regards the kinetics and the enhancement, they found that the enhancement is the most specific, and also in our results, the enhancement is the most specific because the tumor may shrink. You have two types of shrinkage based on chemotherapy. It may shrink in an onion peel fashion, so that you might have boundaries or like a skeleton of the tumor, but inside all is necrotic tissues. So you will still see something in the image of ultrasound mammography.
Exactly what I was asking.
Yes, so you may have an image evidence of a lesion, but actually it's all necrotic tissue. Okay, so the size is not sensitive for evaluating complete pathological response, but it's a good indicator of, if decreasing, indicating good response. But the kinetics is the most specific because you don't have, if no enhancement in the image, this means no new vascularity and no tumor cells. So the kinetic data is the most important because it is a reflection of the new vascularity, not the size. About MRI, MRS is good and perfect if from the start you have a big choline peak in the spectrum, but some tumors gives no or small choline peak in the spectrum, so you cannot depend. But if you have a big choline from the start and you have a baseline MR spectroscopy, so it's a very sensitive tool again because you have measurable something. You can measure the peak and you can measure the extent of the peak of choline.
Just a small question. That means that we can consider it a complete response if I cannot measure the time signal intensity.
Yes.
If I put the cursor, I will find no enhancement at all.
Yes.
If I find any enhancement,
but if you find the enhancement and you find the change in the curve, this is again a complete.
I mean no curve at all.
No message at all. This is a complete pathological response. Yes.
Some cases are perplexing and
yes.
Yeah, I mean, some cases would enhance only from the inflammation at the site of the tumor rather than actual.
You are talking about chemotherapy, following chemotherapy, or post-operative?
Usually, people come with two things: chemo and radio, or.
Well, for the post-operative breast, it's a different story. When we talk about the MRI finding in post-operative breast, yes, you can find some enhancement at the operative bed because of the radiation plexopathy. Some of the radiation changes could evoke some enhancement, but again, you can carefully analyze the curve. It should be rapid rise, should be rapid wash out or plateau. Some radiation changes may cause washout, but it's delayed. And the enhancement reach its peak after a delayed time, so the curve is not typical. And sometimes we cannot, we may be able to decide and indeterminate, and we go for biopsy, but our aim is to decrease the unnecessary intervention.
Leave for us some space for biopsy.
Thank you.
I just have a very quick question for you. talked about MR spectroscopy, you talked about diffusion, and you talked about PET. You didn't talk about MR perfusion. Have you ever tried or read or literature that
perfusion in the breast, actually I don't try it, but I have a published study about diffusion, but I didn't try the perfusion before. You told me before, Dr. Khalid, I must try.
My question is that we all raised on contrast enhancement in brain tumors, and we have the idea that if you got more contrast enhancement in a brain tumor, that means it's more malignancy. After perfusion, this breakdown. It's not true at all. It depends more on perfusion. If you have more perfusion or high perfusion, it means malignancy. Much more accurate than contrast enhancement. So I wish next study to be in that area to see if you can get help from MR perfusion. Thank you very much.
Actually, you are raising an important issue. I was speaking with Professor Ashraf Salim in the break about breast cancer in pregnancy. MRI is contraindicated in pregnancy, so this may be helpful if we started to analyze independent of the contrast. This might be helpful in such a group of patients. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dr. Nouran Hussein. She's a dear friend and a dear colleague. Her lecture will be about quality assurance in breast MRI, and actually Dr. Nouran is one of the pioneers of breast MRI in Egypt, and the least I can say that she is one of the most perfectionists that I have ever worked with.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rasha, for this wonderful introduction. Thank you.